Добро вечер во 360 степени. Вечерва ќе направиме отклон од темите што доминираат во постизборието. Кај нас, иако она за што ќе разговараме е повторно тесно поврзано со прашањето како до побрз развој на земјава. Наш и ваш гостин ќе биде Майк Зафировски, македонец кој повеќе децении живее и работи во Соединетите Американски држави, но редовно ја има во мислите и се враќа на татковината. Майк Зафировски бил на важни менаџерски, извршни и советнички позиции во големи американски мултинационални компании и корпорации како General Electric, Boeing, Nortel, Motorola, а во моментов раководи со семејната Zav Group. Во земјава дојде меѓу другото поради самитот на Македонија 2025, невладина организација основана од гурбеджии која сака да го побегне развојот на оваа земја. Господине Зафировски, добро дојдовте во 360 степени.
Добар вечер, Васко, како сте?
Одлично, се надевам и вие добро се чувствувате.
Фала Богу, многу сум добар.
Добро дојдовте и во татковината и веднаш ќе ве прашам колку татковини имате?
Две.
Две имате.
Македонија 15 години, Америка 55, ма двете се исти на мене, колку зборам кој е Homeland, татковина.
Од Македонија заминавте во 1969 како 15 годишно момче. Основното образование го завршивте овде, така?
8,5 години, да.
Добро. Очигледно е дека македонски зборувате, но за ова интервју ќе преферирате одговорите да ги давате главно на англиски.
Разбирам 100%, ама полесно да се да зборам што нешто, тоа е по-софистикират на енглески, ама те молам ти да збориш по македонски, дека разбирам 100%.
Да. Одржувате контакти со вашите другари од основното училиште?
И од градинка.
И од градинка, да. Се сеќавате и на нив?
Како не, тока вчера некогаш.
Што друго ве мотивира да и се враќате на Македонија?
Ми другари, фамилија и Македонија. Ja, verovatno sam, I probably live a boring life, but I'm very committed to everything I've always belonged to. Country, one wife, again, very loyal to things that are very close to me, so yes.
Не сте постојано овде, доаѓате од време на време, имате контакти, рековме. Како ви е впечатокот? Дали и како се развива или менува, ајде, подобро оваа земја?
I come at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. This time was a record, 12 days. So having 9 grandkids at home, many other responsibilities. So to take 12 days, it's a pretty significant commitment, but it's a joy. It's a joy to be here, again, friends, relatives, and also part of Macedonia 2025 to assess what's developing in the country and to see if we can provide any sort of helpful advice and help.
And when you compare the situation, let's say, with the previous time you've been here, what's your impression? Is there any improvement, and in which way?
Yeah. I mean, the quality of life continues to be very good. People, their friendships, their, if you will, their social activities continue to be very, very attractive and desirable. Commitment to family and to neighborhoods continues to be very strong. There's definitely some progress in the last 20 years or so since we became involved. But at the same time, there's a level of, I would use the word razočaranje, disillusionment. People are expecting more. So there's the balance of good relationships, good family feelings, but there's also a sense of we can, should, and must do better. So there's a balance of those two that continues to be very prevalent.
И очигледно кога дел од луѓето овде, особено млади, добро едуцирани, треба да изберат дали ќе продолжат да живеат како што вие велите овде, можеби социјално малку поразличен живот, или сепак ќе одат некаде надвор во поорганизирани држави и системи, многу избираат да одат или во Западна Европа или во САД и Австралија. За жал.
Yeah, I mean that's a reality. I mean the brain drain continues. The numbers speak for themselves. There is a core of people that say they would love to stay here, they want to stay here, but of course they would not be permanent unless there's some sort of an improvement. And also a number of countries, for example, India, but many other countries as well, where people have been going to Western Europe, the United States, as the promise in their homelands become real, there's a trend the other way too, and I'm hopeful we'll see much more of that in Macedonia as well.
Ве знаеме главно од вашата професионална работа. Многу не ве познаваме приватно. Имате семејство, имате 3 сина. Што друго може да ни кажете за Майк Зафировски приватно?
Deda Mike, that's what the kids call me, obviously using a Macedonian for a grandfather.
Do they speak any Macedonian or
A
no?
few words, not as much as, no, but they do understand some. Our middle son has been coming here as the MC for the summits now for the last 6 years. But I, proud husband, proud father, proud grandfather, and hopefully a person of values. I feel very privileged, and it's my favorite book, the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. So I try to live up to that for personal measurement. When you look in the mirror, are you doing that well? But also as a role modeling. You have boys, you have grandkids, you have friends, so the level of responsibility I take very seriously.
Ако Библијата ви е омилена книга, тоа значи дека сте религиозен. Иако е тоа сепак многу приватно прашање, но сепак самиот рековте.
Много. I mean, when we're being raised here, I mean, this is what Karl Marx, religion is opium for the masses. So certainly I grew up that way. Started going to church after being married, but mostly as a, if you will, to honor your wife, to do the respectable thing. But eventually, as you listen more, as people would say, religion really is a thinking person's activity. So you reflect on what's driving decisions, how you think about it. So faith has become very important, particularly the last 20 years, yes.
Кога веќе споменуваме религијата, смеам да ве прашам на која религиозна група и припаѓате?
Orthodox, Episcopalian, my wife, she's a lifelong Protestant Episcopalian, so both of them.
Во Бостон има македонска црква?
I live in Chicago. I'm going to Boston for one of my sons, but no problem. But yes, they do. Yes, they do. Crown Point, Indiana, which is only an hour away from Chicago, it's a very, very significant church. Lots of attendees.
Сте го сретнале некогаш владиката на македонската црква, Методи?
Пред 5 месеци беше во Crown Point.
Тој е добро едуциран човек, да. Имам едно друго прашање за вас. Имате универзитетска диплома по математика.
Да.
Сега имајќи ги предвид слабите резултати на нашите 15 годишни ученици на ПИСА тестирањето, меѓу другото и по математика, колку вам познавањето на математиката ви помагаше во пробивањето во бизнисот?
Много. I mean, може да бидеш математичар, you can be a mathematician to be a professor, you can be a scientist, you can do many things as well. But I would argue that being thoughtful about statistics and math and establishing goals is very helpful to be an executive as well. What are you, a manager, chief executive, if you were a prime minister of a country, being comfortable with numbers is not the only thing, but actually it is quite helpful.
И веројатно да бидете логичар, како се вели на македонски, нели, исто така помага. Да речеме, јас познавам исто така добри правници кои што биле добри математичари. Некако не значи дека ако студирате обштествени науки нужно треба да бидете скаран со математика.
Yeah. Numbers is not everything, but numbers speak loudly.
Вие заедно со Џон Битов јуниор сте коосновачи на Македонија 2025.
И Митро Котановски.
Го посветувате дел од вашето време, дел од вашата енергија и дел од вашите пари на визијата за подобра Македонија. Имате бројни иницијативи во рамките на организацијата. Помошта ваша не ја доделувате и правите на фанфари, него правите тоа многу гласно. Што е главниот мотив сепак да го правите тоа?
Може две приказни да ги направам брзо, to give you some perspective on the background, if you will. They deal with Boris Zafirovski and Cervenkovsky, two very random activities back many years ago that really gave me the passion, if you will, to support. And I'll start with the answer. Many of us say what's important to us, but very rarely we do what we say it's important to us. So back, this is in 2002, I became president of Motorola, 150,000 employees, and I was running to make a big presentation to thousands of employees. My secretary is chasing me, says, Mike, you have an important phone call. I said, well, I'm late, take a message, I'll call him or her back. She goes, no, it's very important. And she was very mild-mannered, very nice lady, but she was getting excited. So well, take a message, I'll call him back. No, it's very important. I said, well, who is it? She goes, he's the president of Macedonia. And I started laughing, I thought she was joking. She says, well, I said, well, what's his name? So you get caught in a white lie, you say you're proud Macedonian and proud American both, and here you're 44, 45 years old. You don't know the name of the president of your country. So I picked up the phone, it was Boris Zafirovski, says, Mike, we're not asking for anything. Very proud of you. Not many Macedonian-born people become presidents of a Fortune 50 company. Whenever you have time, we'd love to have you come and visit. And as you talk about General Electric or Motorola making investments in a country, or if you meet some successful prime ministers, what you talk about, any assessments and any recommendations for you would be welcome. When is your next plane to come to Macedonia? I said, well, I was there a month ago, probably next year or 2 years from now. But there's the guilt feeling. So I came back within 3 weeks, established a very nice relationship with President Zafirovski. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years later. And then Cervenkovsky's involvement was in Canada a few years later. He was talking to 500-600 very proud Canadian Macedonians. Made a big said, whatever ideas you have, suggestions, investments, please come, we're prepared to listen. And John Bitov Sr., John's father, came, and we had no idea what's coming. Mr. Prime Minister, if you're serious, here's two guys that can be helpful to you. It was John Bitov Jr. and myself. So there was the genesis, if you will. We didn't know how or what to do. For the first 4 years was private coaching, private answers or private suggestions as President Zafirovski was asking. The follow-up discussion really was how to make it even much more organized. So now for almost, this has been now since 2008, we have an organization led by a very successful, very inspiring CEO, Nikita. So the goal is very simple, to help build a stronger nation. Mm-hmm. We're not confused that, people did not vote for us, we did not have a mandate. But the thoughts really were what you call the 3 T's in the United States. If something is important to you, time, talent, and treasure. So what is recommendations to the government? What is trying to inspire small, mid-sized, or large businesses? What is inspiring the next generation? What that's trying to bring diaspora into the country? We've been trying to do that now for a long time. We've made some real good impact. But I would argue that still the country is not moving as fast as the citizen would like to see.
Кога во 2007-2008 ја воспоставивте Македонија 20-25. Што требаше тогаш да значи 20-25?
I said I'm very big on numbers. Really the goals and the targets were, can Macedonia become a successful country, someplace in the middle of the pack, with incomparable companies across the world.
Does it mean now you should change the name of the organization?
I mean, I'm one out of 18 board members. There's a good chance we'll reconsider what the future should be. We are very committed to helping build a stronger nation. Should that require a name change? Obviously, it's very controversial in Macedonia for other reasons, but the goal remains the same. Help build a stronger nation. And I have always said, independent, strong, democratic Macedonia is the best thing for the građani, for the citizens of Macedonia, good for the region, good for Europe, and good for the world. So that passion remains very, very strong.
You have quite a rich track record in the past 16, 17 years of the existence of Macedonia 2025. From your perspective, what is the greatest achievements of the organization?
Impact on many of the most promising individuals in the country. And we have trained more than 1,000 people, future CEOs of the countries, also be helping some of the middle-level managers. We've trained a number of businesses. So changing the mindset and the aspirations for the young has been very, very positive. I believe some of the programs, including the summit, we just finished a very successful summit, has been game-changing in terms of what's possible, highlighting successes. So I can point to many, many successes of that nature. At the same time, the reality is the country is not moving up the way the citizens want, the way the businesses want, and the way prior governments have aspired to. So there remains a burning desire. I'm very realistic, face reality, and so part of lots of the coaching, lots of the advice has been in terms of what do we need to do different to achieve better results.
Во својата кариера, веќе рековме, сте воделе многу успешни компании во различни држави. САД, Сингапур, Велика Британија, Унгарија, Кина. Компании кои поради важноста и големината имале значајни односи со владите на тие земји. Можете ли да споделите со нас позитивни искуства или економски политики на влади кои влијаеле врз растот на економијата на тие држави, врз растот на компаниите, привлекувале и задржувале странски инвестиции во тие држави?
I mean, the short answer is absolutely, positively. I mean, I'll use Singapore, I'll use China and Hungary as prime examples. And even start with the answer, unless you prioritize economic development, you can have ambitions, but not the resources to make those ambitions real. When I was president of Motorola, we had 40,000 employees in China. We had 150,000 overall, but 40,000 employees in China. We used to meet with the Prime Minister of China once a year, once every 2 years as a board. And he would come to a meeting. He said, Mr. Zafirovski, thank you for being here. We value Motorola. Every morning I wake up and I think this year I need to create, and I forget the number, 3-4 million jobs every year. I cannot afford this transformation of China from being an agricultural country to a modern country. I cannot afford not to create quality jobs. So you're very important to us. Let me know what else is required for Motorola to be expanding our presence. But I can assure you, employment and growth is very important to me. So that gives you a confidence if you want to invest in that country. I'll give you Singapore as an example. They're among the poorest countries in the world in the 1960s, long time ago. But now today they're the richest country in the world on many, many measurements, if you will. Back in 2000, we are considering moving from Singapore to China. And the president for the Economic Development Board for Singapore, after 8 or 9 attempts to come and see me, my secretary, I guess, was blocking to say, Mike is too busy. He came to says, Mike, I know, Mr. Zafirovski, I know that you're considering leaving Singapore. Our costs are increasing, but productivity is continuing. So not only you should not be closing your factory in Singapore, but here is an overall proposal. We can have an agreement with Indonesia, can provide a package deals on engineering and productivities that we can be more competitive than China. You should stay here. He knew more about me, my family, Motorola strategy and everything. There was a great discussion at the summit yesterday from a foreign investor. Just a reminder, most of the increased investments in foreign in FDI comes from existing companies. So it's not only to bring them here, big celebration, you cut the ribbons and everybody feels good about it, Because that company is successful, so they want to continue to invest here. And I'll give you one last one, Hungary. I mean, Hungary was the first company that GE had acquired. Tungsram, we had 18,000 employees. Viktor Orban at that point in time, he was a young progressive candidate. Jack Welch came to Hungary. He and around Viktor, they said, there's the future of Europe, young, progressive. But you rest assured, they really were looking after what General Electric needed and to make sure that we were successful. And look at Hungary today. I'm not speaking politically. I know Hungary can be controversial. But the level of development of Hungary, again, who are relative to the old Yugoslavia, relative to the old Macedonia, is way behind us. They have progressed. So I do want to make this very point clear to all the citizens of Macedonia. It's not that the name is not important, not that the quality of life is not important, not that many of those other things are not important. But without a strong economy, without a strong passion for business, you have all these ambitions, but you will not have the resources to make those ambitions high. You made the comment of PISA score. I mean, we have to be great in the world again in math scores, in innovation, in sciences. And so that's not a mixed message. So really we're urging the new government to really prioritize economic development, not for economic development's sake on its own, but also for a vehicle to be able to drive all the other agenda items.
Образованието е една важна работа.
And by the way, when Trajkovski called me, they said, what do you guys look for? I said 4 things. Strong infrastructure. And now it used to be only physical, now it's physical and digital infrastructure. Quality workforce. Educated quality workforce. And number 3, rule of law. I mean, the whole concept of come we have cheap labor. I mean, there's demeaning to the country, and that's not appealing to the investors.
Како вие си го објаснувате, да речеме, овој факт? Има многу македонци кои кога живеат и работат овде, ќе фрлат хартија на улица, ќе паркираат кола каде што не треба, ќе фатат врска за да завршат работа, кога ќе отидат на запад, нивното однесување е сосема поинакво. Како си го објаснува? Тоа се истите луѓе практично.
It's frustrating. And I think it's a culture. And I think there's a real responsibility for leadership, political, business leadership, people in the media to be real role modeling. I mean, Sam Walton, just a small example, founder of Walmart. He was very frugal. Something drops on the floor, he picks it up. So it is a combination of teaching. It's not to be looking down on citizens of countries, if you will, but really just to elevate the view of what good culture means, role modeling for the next generation. I mean, there is a comment in the U.S. broken windows. So some of the most impoverished areas in the United States, windows are broken. And the neighbors do not pay attention. Somehow they accept it. So pretty soon that becomes the norm. You start going down, 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 down. So back on the religion comment, I'll not go to religion, but I really encourage all the people in Macedonia to be the role models. You're always looking for somebody else, maybe your boss, the president of the country, versus being the change.
Да почнеме од себе.
100% тоа.
Верувате во силата на лидерство базирано на вредности, велите, и во бизнисот, и во политиката, и во спортот.
100%.
Една од програмите на вашата организација Македонија 2025, која ја поддржувате и кофинансирате, е обука на врвни менаџери од Македонија. На Келок школата за бизнис, една од врвните бизнис школи во светот. Вашата цел е, велите, да ги таа школа да ја поминат 100 најдобри сегашни и идни менаџери. Какво е искуството до сега од програмата? Дава ли резултати таа?
Outstanding. Just frankly beyond all expectations. If you go to Kellogg, this is the executive development program. I mean, we put our people, and I do say our because I do consider myself as a part of a Macedonian culture. They would say the Macedonian people, we bring 5 or 6, the top leaders from United States, Canada, Brazil, South Africa, Korea. I mean, the level of communication skills, can-do attitude, inspirational thinking is frankly second to none. And I'll just use a couple of examples. Miloš Radulović from Alkaloid. I mean, he said he thought, Milos, hopefully you don't mind me quoting you, he said he did not fully understand all the things he did not understand until he went there. They have some of the best minds in the world in marketing, artificial intelligence, leadership, supply chain. So that level, and Zhivko Mukhetov has sent 5 people. Initially we thought 1 or 2 people per company. He cannot wait to send more. AI has had 2 individuals.
Интересно е дека сакате да видите и дека компанијата која што ги има тие луѓе кај себе, инвестира нешто, тие символично партиципираат во школарината за школата, а грото од парите ги давате вие.
100%, absolutely. It is always important, again, to use an American term, to have a skin in the game. Something that's free is not appreciated. There's been many studies done. If you have a health club for free, people don't use it as much. If you make them pay $2 a month, they use it more often.
Иако школата не е ефтина.
Не, $40,000-50,000 за един човек за 3 недели. I mean, scholarships, our investments. But I also want to go back to the view, what's Macedonia 2025 doing? Can you imagine if you have, say 75 of those individuals become CEOs in a country of under 2 million people?
Да, не е мала бројка.
Obviously, alcohol has thousands of employees. You can have 5, 10, 50 people. So the impact can be so profound. Right now, the program is getting such a positive reaction. The Chamber of Commerce, maybe even the government, to say, can we have some additional people that go through the program, not limited only to the larger corporations?
Добро, дел од тие пари ги дава компанијата која што ги праќа своите сегашни или идни менаџери на таа школа, дел вие, сите вие, другите пари се ваши, како ги собирате парите?
Повеќето се наши. Ами имавме гела прошлата година, last year, I've been here so long now, I keep mixing Macedonian and English. Actually, that's nice. That's enjoyable. I mean, we raised $1.1 million last year. $1.1 million to support our programs. Those are my friends. I mean, Ken Griffin, the founder of Citadel, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. Chris Galvin, former CEO of Motorola, Boeing. Many companies are investing.
So not only Macedonians.
Oh no, most of them are not. We say, look, first of all, they see my passion and also articulate without being embarrassed to say strong, independent, democratic Macedonia is good for the region, is good for the United States, is good for the world. And back to the time, talent, and treasure, there's so much money out there that people are looking for good causes to invest. And I believe that, that's one of the opportunities being philanthropic. Again, to whom much is given, much is required. And I'm thrilled to see now, the board initially was only diaspora. Now we have 6 people out of Macedonia. The next chairman of the board is Victor Miza, Macedonian board, Macedonian executive. So it's not only people from the outside, but this is really a group of dedicated, accomplished Macedonians that put in a country ahead of their own personal interest. And I think we need much more of that to really help the country move forward.
Да. Неодамна Македонија 2025 го представи планот за реформи и мерки за економски развој. Го нарековте една визија за забрзан раст. Што подразбира тој план?
I mean, this is our third attempt, without going too much in history. The first one was probably 50 pages long. We had 7 indicators for measuring growth, 7 indicators like PISA score, transparency index. Probably was too complicated. We thought it's much more important that we had a second attempt, and Nikica and the team did 7 major activities. It was back in 2020. We thought it'd be better to do it differently, to identify the major priorities, which we think are priorities. We met with all 6 political parties before the elections to say economic growth is critically important. You can have left-leaning or right-leaning policies. It's not whether you're left or right. How do we move forward? I think finally everybody is saying corruption is cancer in the society. It has to be addressed vigorously. not only attacking the prior administration, but across the board, if you will. We said digitization is critical, and also efficient government. So we made those 4 points, and we said we need to be setting targets. Back to the numbers. And I said 5% economic growth is critically important. Some of you wrote this, well, don't you know we've only grown 1.2%? So of course we do, and look where we are.
Достижни ли се тие стапки на раст? Вие зборувате за најмалку 5% раст. Да речеме, Мицкоски, кој што најверојатно е идниот премиер на земјава, во кампањата зборуваше за раст до 5%.
I mean, 3-4 would be much better than it is now. 5 is better than 3 or 4. 10% is better than 5.
Достижно ли е тоа? Колку е реалистично тоа? Тоа е прашањето.
I mean, it's an interesting question. The answer is absolutely it's possible if you prioritize it. If you're prime minister, there's thousands of big things and small things that will be coming, as you said, his way. We think the next prime minister will be. If you prioritize, again, a China prime minister, so Mr. Zafirovski, I wake up every morning and I think I'm going to create 3 or 4 million jobs this year. I want to get to, I mean, here's the other one. I want to get into the WTO, World Trade Organization. Can Motorola help me into the WTO? So that's sort of a growth, or should we be getting into the EU? Is that a priority? If it's a priority, what are you going to do about it? Not necessarily just focus on some things that may be sensitive, but if you want to get into EU, what are you prepared to do? And do not negotiate publicly. Again, if that's a passion, same thing on corruption. If you're ranked 17th, 80th in the world, it's not last, but it's not very appealing.
Мицкоски зборува за менување на филозофијата на поттикнување на растот. Вели, ние од поттикнување на потрошувачката ќе преминаме на поттикнување на раст преку зголемување на инвестициите. 100%. Што мислите вие за това?
I mean, it is the chicken and the egg, to use an American. So what comes first, the egg or the chicken? You need investments. Now, there'll be a pressure to increase pensions, if you will. Obviously, I have lots of elderly relatives. But I would argue, make sure that you make the investments for growth. That's going to allow you to make further investments in the future and to pay better pensions. So the whole concept of being preoccupied with growth. Now, I'm sure they're going to have many suggestions. We've volunteered. So we'll be very, very open to give you our thoughts, our suggestions. The Chamber of Commerce may have some. I'm sure some professors from academia. But it is the opportunity and the challenge of government to look at various alternatives and to make decisions. But if you are driven by true accomplishments, if things are not working, what are you going to do different? And I've used the handball match of earlier this week as a perfect example. I mean, the night before that handball match, if I said, Vasco, do you think we can make the World Championships? People say, I don't know.
It will be difficult, yeah.
7 goals is different, and we're disappointed, and we have to win by at least 8 goals. So that's 5% is the same. Is winning by 8 goals achievable? Yes, it is. The mindset, the preparation, is the crowd going to be full when you have enough excitement? It's no different if you want to commit to improving PISA scores, improving the corruption index view, rule of law, and I would just say again, I do not mean to say that when you discuss business, lots of people say, well, somehow that's boring or very few people are good at it, versus strong economic growth is the fuel to allow many other things. And businesses can go places. There's options where businesses go. And maybe just we talk about FDI. I just want to make clear, there's not one successful country in the world that does not have a strong local businesses and ability to attract foreign investment. It's not either or. It's not preferring one versus the other, but reality is you need to be good at both.
Се тоа зашто зборуваме тесно поврзано со власта и владата, се разбира. Вие веќе ги споменавте председателите Трајковски и Црвенковски како некои што на некој начин ве мотивирале да се ангажирате преку Македонија 2025 во поттикнување и помош на развојот на оваа земја. Имате ли редовни контакти со владите? Како би ги опишале тие? На какво ниво се?
I mean, it's a pretty high level. I mean, Gruevski we used to meet quite often. Zaev we used to met a number of times, at least once or twice a year, phone calls from here to there. So they've always been very cordial. It's all about the execution. I mean, as I met with Gruevski when he was opposition leader first time. I met with Zaev before he became prime minister. I mean, I give Gruevski lots of credit. Initially, he was all in on education, lots of them. Again, I'm not making political statements, but there was one very good example of ambition, resources, and prioritizing. Unfortunately, at some point in time, he got sidetracked on other issues that were not helpful for the country. But that's when you ask me, are you positive? Are you confident about the future? Prime Minister designate came yesterday. He gave a wonderful talk.
Да, каков впечаток ви остави?
Amazing. I mean, not a single note. Again, it's easier to say things. I should say that. It's easier to say things. It's much more difficult to actually stay true to what you said. And sports, business, government, there's always ups and downs. Now, you're so committed to what you think is important, again, integrity, economic growth, strong education, robust judiciary system. If those things are important as you sit back and make decisions, hopefully he's going to remember. With 500 people listening to him intently, I hear us on television to say, I made these promises. So if he's in a back room, they call those cigar smoke-filled rooms, they'll be precious for people to do something maybe contrary. Not that you should not change your mind, but think deeply if you're going to change your mind. And if you do, go and explain what that is. So I'm open. I mean, this again, I'm speaking as an individual, not for Macedonia 2025, although they're open as well. My only ambition is to help build a stronger nation. Just the way I helped my former college, my friends, if you view Macedonia at that high level of, and even if you don't like it, I'll tell you. Or conversely, I may not agree with you. If you tell me something, you say, look, there's maybe a better way, but I'll support what's being driven. But at the end, you're either going to win 8 goals or you're not going to go to World Championships. Many of those things are really driven by the passion, what I refer to as a plane of plans. If you want to get to 5% plus growth, you probably have 4 or 5 important plans: education, incentives, training, digitization, for example. Whom would you hire to help you digitize? Not all those programs are going to work. But you should never shy away from your overall goal to say, well, I had 5 plans, 3 are working, but I need to modify the next 2 to allow me to make this commitment. And if you do that, and all of a sudden, the following, including from opposition, is going to increase. And back to the initial comment, I'll finish with that. I want to say, really, it is challenging to put country ahead of any personal interest or company interest. I'll use Israel as an example, maybe not good example today. When it comes to security for Israel, whether you're left or right in Israel, they all understand security of the country is most important. Same thing if you think education, if you think growth, if you think corruption is a problem, ideally, the business community, the government, the academia, the citizens will align with some of those things. So again, if you see a broken window, you're going to fix it, even the small things, let alone the big things.
Да фалат тој тип на прекупартиски, прекугенерацијски стратегии за развој на клучните сектори, образование, здравство и така натаму. Пред неколку дена се одржа 13-тото издание на најголемата конференција која што ја организирате на годишно ниво, ја нарекувате Самит на Македонија 2025. Ја споменавме веќе неколку пати во текот на овој разговор. Колку сте задоволни од тоа што се случи на конференцијата?
Fantastic. I mean, just to see, typically, they've all been very successful. This one was on multiple levels.
Зошто мислите така?
I mean, first of all, numbers speak loudly. The room was full in the morning, late morning, early afternoon, late afternoon.
Да, тоа зборува многу. Да.
So to have the themes were even more aligned on one vision for the country, accelerated vision, if you will, for growth, and one of there was what attracts FDI, what makes us a stronger company, how do we think about the future of AI and technology. Again, but I encourage you. I mean, you should come next time. People that came, there's all sort of notes, half the people from Macedonia, half the people from all over the world, but lots of very practical examples.
Го споменавме веројатно идниот премиер Мицковски, кој што беше дел од конференцијата, требаше самито да го отвори председателката Гордана Силјановска-Давкова, но тоа не се случи. Знаете зошто?
I think it was some sort of a scheduling matters, but we spent an hour and 15 minutes with her later in the day. First time I met her, I mean, I was very impressed with her. This is, I mean, it's one of those, again, she gave me one of those, again, I was not aware of it. Macedonian Proud, again, this is the short version of a much longer document. And again, I mean, I thought in the first page, again, this was, she is commenting on 11 really big challenges facing the country. The best news is everybody seems to get what the challenges are. I mean, this is a state is falling apart in front of our eyes. Corruption and crime have perpetuated all parts of society. The hope for a better tomorrow is waning. The Prime Minister said the same. Businesses said the same. The opposition party is saying the same, similar comments. So again, so that level of a realization, what has to change, that's the most important first step. Where the country goes next. And that's where the most important thing is what happens now.
Што мислите во тој контекст за тоа што вие сте практично во Македонија во периодот кога се случува тектонска промена на политичката сцена, една елита заминува во опозиција, друга е во најава дека доаѓа многу очигледно на власт. Колку е ова шанса за навистина за нов почеток?
Unlimited. Unlimited. But I should also say, again, without naming names, in previous administrations, even when there was good progress being made, somewhere around that journey, the emphasis moved not necessarily how to continue that journey, versus how to make sure that we demonize the opposition, how to keep them in check, versus moving it forward. That's what I've told every prime minister before, and I'll make the suggestion to the most likely next prime minister. I mean, if you drive the results the way you said you will during the campaign, the way you said yesterday, the following will be very strong. Numbers speak for themselves, and I think that really is the big opportunity.
Има една тема што сама од себе се наметна во овој период, тоа е прашањето со името на државата. Тоа од пред неколку години е сменето после договорот од Преспа. Уставното име на земјата е Република Северна Македонија. Председателката во заклетвата не го користеше уставното име, реши да каже само Македонија. Тоа предизвика бура од реакции, не само од Грција и од Европската Унија. Критики, укажувања за тоа дека договорите се сепак обврзувачки, дека треба да се почитуваат. Вчера го чувме и Мицковски, го повтори истиот став, дека смета дека тоа што усно ќе го користи терминот Македонија не е прекршување на договорот. Што мислите вие околу целата оваа гужва?
I'm sure what I will say will cause some anger with some people. You say, if I want to speak to Macedonian people, I should look at the camera. I think I'm a patriotic Macedonian. I love this country. I love the future for it. But maybe too practical of a perspective. The two prime ministers that signed the Prespa Treaty both lost the next elections. A big part of it is because of the agreement on the name. Both the Greek Prime Minister and Zaev We're no longer in power. There's lots of unhappiness on both sides of the agreement. Again, from a business perspective or from history of negotiations, if you have both sides feeling there's some sort of a dissatisfaction, typically that means it was an agreement that's probably as good as you would ever get. So part of my consternation right now is to say, if we raise that issue, even any sort of a doubts, was that a wise thing to do?
So you think it's not in the benefit of North Macedonia?
I mean, we call Macedonia privately and all of those things, but if you've made an agreement, and again, there's 12, I only read a couple, if it's 11 or 12 big issues, do you need some additional distraction? And again, another perspective, again, not to go in history, I remember having a lunch with President Ivanov, 10 years ago.
In particular, if that
on this issue, I just asked him a question of, I'm interested, I'm curious. And that's when there's negotiations are being pursued on the name. I asked him, how much of your time do you spend on the Greek issue? He said 90%. I said, do you mean you or do you mean the Prime Minister as well and the staff? I thought he was going to say only me. He said, the Prime Minister and the staff. He said, all of us. And again, very practical, maybe I'm too far away from Macedonia to say, if you have all these challenges facing the country, if you're spending 90% of your time on, and again, it's not a non-important issue, but if you spend 90% on that topic, if you will, how much time are you truly addressing all the other issues facing the country? So that's what I'm saying is that with all the challenges we have right now, I would just try to find a way to put that thing behind and move forward. Or if you want to change, I mean, I think it'd be very hard to accomplish something better than was accomplished a number of years ago. Again, personal view, not necessarily in 2025. Again, as a patriot for the country, really wanted to reduce the brain drain, try to elevate Macedonia to the next level, pick the fights you can win.
Но дури кога зборуваме за целта за забрзан економски раст од најмалку 5 или повеќе од 100 на економијата, прашањето е дали тоа може да се постигне без процесот на зачленување во Европската Унија, ако тој застане поради проблеми со договорот од Преспа.
I mean, again, not meant to be too provocative, but I think you can get over 5% with or without the EU. I mean, China is not part of the EU, there's many other countries. There's really nothing stopping us for pursuing the kinds of things that the European Union designates, human rights, democracy, and things of that nature. I think EU is actually a great club to belong to. I do believe Macedonians feel they're part of Europe. I think the aspirations in general for Europe are very much consistent to what Macedonians are looking for. Economic growth, some investments from EU obviously would be helpful, but I want to give them a message that I don't think EU on its own is going to get to 5% growth, or not being part of EU, that would prevent us.
When are you coming back again?
At least a year from now, possibly before, but now with Zoom, Teams, all the other activities, I'm a phone call away. And we'll be meeting now with the Chamber of Commerce. Today was supposed to be all day with relatives and friends, but we'll be meeting now with the Chamber of Commerce for 2 hours. The Prime Minister designate, or the likely next Prime Minister, whatever is the appropriate terminology, we're going to meet for an hour or so this afternoon just to see if there's some practical steps. We would have done that with the opposition if they would have won. Again, the view really is it's easier to say things. And Nikitsa, part of the fundings which we raised last year, we want to hire 2 great people. And if you know someone, let me know. But one, to be a great economic expert. So if the government has some proposed Chamber of Commerce for us to be a very constructive voice as we look at various growth opportunities, what we think may be constructive and additive or subtracting from the proposals of how to get to this 5% plus growth, and one on corruption. I mean, there's many examples of countries, Singapore, Georgia, where they've made a significant improvements in both the perceptions and reality of corruption. So again, if people are listening,
Fight against corruption.
Fight, yeah, of course, yes, so of course.
No.
I'm glad
You're a mathematician, therefore.
No, but we really want to have that sort of an individual. And I'm even using the comment, if you want to have a great basketball team, you want to get Luka Doncic to play for you, or Nikola Jokic. I would love for Nikica, I mean, obviously, I think we selected Nikica was that sort of an impact. They really have a great CEO for MK 2025. We would love for Nikica to have two people is to join the team to say, look, we have a Jokic or Doncic equivalent that people are going to respect. And there used to be a commercial in the United States. This is a person giving advice on where to invest. E.F. Hutton, this was many years ago. But the commercial was when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. So it's a cocktail party, and if you and I are discussing that, there's maybe 100 people here. And I said, Vasco, my advisor is E.F. Hutton, and he says, and everybody goes quiet to say, well, what did E.F. Hutton say? We'd love to get that sort of expertise, unbiased, pro-Macedonia, pro-growth, pro-no corruption, to be adding to all the other activities which we have for Macedonia 2025.
Ви благодарам за овој разговор. Се надам дека тој ќе поттикне позитивни процеси кај дел од луѓето. Ви посакувам добро здравје и да се видиме повторно, ако не побрзо, барем наредната година.
Still post again. I love this country. I love the people here, the sentiment, their passion. And I think we deserve better than we have, and not pointing any fingers, but collectively. And I was going to say, look in the mirror first. Are you being the best father? Are you being the best husband? Are you being the best grandfather? Are you being the best salesperson? Are you being the best executive? Are you being the best minister of whatever? Are you being the best prime minister? And I think that's sort of a mindset. It's only 2 million people. There's disadvantages of being a small country. There's also advantages. In theory, it should be much easier for us to transform ourselves rather than having a billion people the way India and China have. So just a perspective, again, great to be here, and I pray for right decision and right actions to be taken on the small steps and on the large steps as well.
Благодарам уште еднаш.
Wish me Milo.